Live, trance, and prosper. Hi, I'm Professor Brian David Phillips. Welcome to my home. You can see part of it back there, but I'm in a circle today because I'm going to do a little bit online. Let's get to it. We're going to go into NotebookLM. Here we are in NotebookLM. It is from Google. It is free. It is pretty gosh darn awesome. And I'm making this video well for you, the folks who watch it on YouTube. Specifically, I'm making this for my students at the university because I will be encouraging them to make use of NotebookLM this year to help them study. Now, if we go into take a look around, now I'm blocking a few things. I can't help it. It's just where I am. Um, when you first go into NotebookLM, you see public things, and so you can look at some things that are public. I'm going to hit My Notebooks up here. And as you see, I have a lot of notebooks. I use NotebookLM quite a bit for my own research, for my own study, and things like that. But today, I'm going to build a new one. Now, if you're one of my students, or if you are a student, or if you're just a random person who wants to learn stuff, or if you're in my classes specifically, or if you're in any university class or any class at all, and you've got a teacher, let's say an incredibly handsome teacher, I don't know who that would be, but let's say your teacher, oh cruel thing that he or she is, assigns a lot of reading material. I happen to teach a class called Oral Training and Reading. It's a communication course that helps students with their oral skills. And by oral skills, I mean speaking, public speaking, interpersonal speaking, things like that. I am in an English department in Taiwan, and reading. And in my class, there's a lot of reading to do. I also teach a course in readings in drama. Readings in drama. Gee, I wonder if there's any reading in that class. Hint, there is. And so if you have a course that has readings at all, you might want to use this sucker. So let's create a new notebook. So I'm going to just go ahead and jump right in, create new notebook, and that'll jump us into here. We can add sources. Now we can add sources from my Google Drive, or I can give you links from a website or even YouTube videos, or I can upload sources. I'm going to upload sources directly. So I'm going to go to um, my folder on my drive. And let's see, I know for a fact that for my readings in drama, some of the first things my students are going to be looking at are going to be some Aristotle pieces. Aristotle theory, as well as some critical theory related to it. Let's look at the first couple of weeks. So the first couple of weeks of my readings in drama, we're going to look at a piece that uses Aristotle criticism as well as a piece that uses alchemical criticism. That's Jung. And we have some specific plays that we're going to look at regarding those. So I'm going to grab those and just drop them here. And over on the left-hand side up above me, you can see that it is populating. So above my head up here, you can see that it's the file names show up and they're uploading. And as they upload, everything will populate. It'll take a little bit. Usually when I do things, I'll just do one file, one folder, because I just drill in. But if you're in a course, you might want to do everything for one course, just drop it into one folder. And here's the neat thing. Notice, select all sources here, and they're all checked. But I can unselect them all, and I can choose specific ones. I know that the first week of class, we're going to be looking at a critical approach to Aristotle for drama, and we're going to look at a specific performance. And so I click those two things, and now those are what's going to happen down here. And I can then ask questions about these particular pieces in the chat. So I can ask, can you you just have a chat with your sources? Okay, so I'm asking, can you give me a summary of Aristotle's points related to Heaven by Storm, which is the umbilical brothers piece that I have a critical approach to this. And then I just hit this and ask, and it will search the material and answer my questions. Boom. Okay. So if I'm studying, I can just go into the chat and directly interact with the material. Another thing I can do is over here, and notice on the side, the right hand side, I can turn that on and off. So right now it's off. I turn this on and I've got what's called the studio on. This is all based on Gemini, and there's AI Studio from Google's Gemini. So I can create what's called an audio overview, a video overview, mind map of the articles, and I've got these two articles clicked, as well as some other things. I'm going to go ahead and keep these two. I'm going to turn off one of them and just do a deep dive into the Heaven by Storm, which is it is an Aristotelian analysis of Heaven by Storm, which is a performance by the Umbilical Brothers. So I want an audio overview. I'm just clicking that, and that will start generating an audio overview, which is kind of a podcast. And I'll start generating the video overview as well. And I'll start generating a mind map. And then under the reports, you can see here, clicking here, I can have a briefing doc. I can have a study guide. I can have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, and a timeline. Now I'm just going to go ahead and just click all this stuff so it starts generating. And some of them will generate very, very, very fast. Others will take a little bit of time, particularly the audio overview and the video overview. But I've already got a bunch of them. You can see they're already generated. So if I click here, I can see I've got, what is this, my mind map? So I click on my mind map, boom, there's a mind map for the article. And I can interact with this. So we got the start of the article, and we've got an outline of it. And I can actually click on thematic analysis. Let's take a look here. And it'll break down the points. Cricket funeral scene, a little more information about that. I can just break them all out if I want, or I can just go into specific ones as I wish to. And I find that pretty cool. I can also, of course, maximize it. I can download the mind map. I can use it for all sorts of things. So that's really, really cool. Okay. I can move it around. I can make it bigger. I can expand it. I can do all sorts of stuff with that. Okay. And I'll just knock that out. Go back into the studio. Let's take a look at, here's the briefing doc. This is an overview of the article. It's kind of a detailed summary. So if you want to review, I mean, obviously, if you're my student, that I know for a fact you're very bright, very dedicated, and you, of course, will read all of the readings from front to back. But sometimes you want to review, and so you'll use a briefing document to review, and you can use this and just review things. That's nice. Go back to Studio. I can download that as well. What else I got here? I have a study guide. It has quiz, so I can ask questions, essay questions, glossary of terms, all sorts of things. So these are all intended to help you study. And of course, a timeline for the article, which that particular article is based upon a performance, so it'll have that as well. And the cast of characters. Not a big cast for that particular play. Let's go with 3, actually. Okay, and now it's still generating the audio overview and the video overview, and that's because those can take time. So while you're waiting for that, you can actually come over here and you can continue asking questions. So I can actually ask it things to do. Could sometimes I do have quizzes, but not often, because you give me major points to help me remember for the quiz. Boom. And it'll give me some pointers that the teacher might use for quizzes and things like that. Okay. Now we see on the right-hand side, we already see that the video overview is still generating, but the audio overview is stopped. Now this is interesting. I'm going to click on this, and you're going to find this neat. Click on that. And what's neat about the audio overview is it's essentially, this is a 14 and a half minutes. It's kind of a podcast telling you the major points of the article. So let's listen to a little bit.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that digs into stacks of sources to pull out the key insights just for you. So today, we're starting with something, well, pretty mind-bending. Imagine this. A stage show, but the performers. They're already dead when the curtain goes up. Sounds like it should be a tragedy, right? Heavy stuff. But what if it's actually one of the funniest and, yeah, most profound comedies you've ever seen? That's exactly what we're diving into today. This incredible, really unique theatrical piece called Heaven by Storm. It's from the Australian comedy duo, the Umbilical Brothers, Shane Dundas and David Collins. And what they use is just, well, minimal. 2 guys, a microphone, sound effects, and just pure improvisation. But from that, they create this whole universe. You've got divine judges, weird cricket funerals, even heavenly bureaucracy. It's wild. Now, this deep dive isn't only about getting laughs, though. Believe me, there are plenty. It's really about how this totally absurd comedy gives us these surprisingly deep thoughts on, mortality, judgment, how we connect as humans, and even what it actually means to, get into heaven. And our guide for this may be a bit unexpected. It's Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher. Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to see how Aristotle's ideas about drama, ethics, existence itself can kind of shed light on this very modern, very...
Okay, you get the idea. So essentially goes through in audio form. So if you want to review and you're more comfortable listening to a review, you can do it this way. You can use it. But here's a really cool thing about the podcast version. Notice here, I have next here an interactive version. So let's click this. Interactive. So when I click this, I now can jump into, I can actually converse with the audio summary. What? That doesn't make sense. Isn't it like a recording? Why, yes. Now, the regular recording, you can download that. And so you can put that on your phone or your MP3 player and you can listen while you're on the go. So my students, while you're in, I don't know, someone else's class, you could be listening to my recordings. Don't do that. But you can, while you're on the bus, listen to a recording. When you're walking on the street, don't listen to recordings. But when you're doing something, just taking it easy, you can listen to a recording. Okay, now let's go into this interactive mode. See what happens. I click play. And notice now
Welcome
it's got
to
a
the
join
Deep
button.
Dive. We're the show that digs into stacks of sources to pull out the key insights just for you. So today we're starting with something, well, pretty mind-bending. Imagine this, a stage show, but the performers, they're already dead when the curtain goes up.
Sounds like it should be a tragedy, right?
Heavy stuff. But what if it's actually one of the funniest and, yeah, most profound comedies?
Okay, notice that in this we have the male voice joined in earlier than on the other version.
You've ever seen. That's exactly what we're diving into today. This incredible, really unique theatrical piece called Heaven by Storm. It's from the Australian comedy duo, the Umbilical Brothers. That's Shane Dundas and David Collins. And what they use is just, well, minimal. Two guys, a microphone, sound effects, and just pure improvisation. But from that, they create this whole universe.
Hey there. Want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm curious, what does Aristotle have to do with Australian comedy?
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
A really important one.
And it gets right to the heart of our deep dive today.
You know, it seems totally unexpected, right?
It does. We're talking about an ancient Greek philosopher and a modern Australian comedy duo.
But what's fascinating here is that Aristotle's ideas, especially from his Poetics, are incredibly flexible. They're not just about classical tragedy, even though that's what he's focused on.
He laid down a framework for understanding how drama works.
How it moves an audience, what its purpose is.
And our sources argue that this framework, this Aristotelian toolkit, as one calls it, is still remarkably relevant.
Even for something.
Oh, yeah.
But do these guys actually use the full framework by Aristotle? Do they use all 6 points in their performance, or are they just mostly skipping things?
That's a great follow-up question, and it really gets into the nuance of it.
Yeah, you're wondering if they hit all the marks or if it's just a loose interpretation.
Our sources confirm that they absolutely use a significant portion of Aristotle's framework.
Not just the big ideas like peripeteia, which we just touched on.
They actually touch on many of the 6 key elements Aristotle identified for drama.
Like plot, character, thought, and even melody and spectacle, though in very modern ways.
It's not a rare checklist, but the framework definitely applies.
For instance, while modern drama...
All right, so you get the idea. So you can actually interact with the recording, and it's live. So you're chatting. So you can ask follow-up questions. You can get deeper dive information about the reading. And if there's something from the reading you don't understand, and of course that would never happen to my students. My students are incredibly bright young people. You know how I know my students are bright? They're in my class. Okay, that's a cop-out. Okay, I know they're bright because they're in my class. And that sounds like they must be bright because they took my class. I like to lie and tell myself, but I teach at one of the best universities in the country. I teach in Taiwan. I teach at National Chengchi University, which is one of the best universities in the country. And so I know that any student in my classroom had to do well compared to their peers to get a seat at this university. Therefore, if they're seated in my classroom, they must be bright. It's not that they took my class and therefore they must be bright. It's they're in the class because they're bright, because everybody is bright. That's just, I just made myself feel less special. I'm going to go cry now. No, I'm not. They're bright young people, but sometimes there will be something that confuses them. I really, honestly, I wish I had access to something like this when I was a student in high school and university. Heck, I wish I had it in grad school. I know for a fact that some of my classmates in grad school would have loved to have had something like this. Over here, we see alchemical because I put in alchemical criticism. When I did my PhD, I studied Jungian criticism, and we read Mysterium Connuncionis, and I loved that class. And I thought Mysterium Connuncionis was the bomb. It was awesome. My classmates, fellow PhD students, hated it. They also hated Derrida's writing, which I understand. But they were totally confused. But if we had access to something like this, maybe they wouldn't have been confused as much because they could have just taken the reading and said, I don't get what you're saying here. Explain it as you would to an idiot. Or if you like, sometimes you can say, explain this concept as you would to a fifth grader. And it will do it. If I ask the chat right here, I say, explain key idea, Aristotle's key ideas as you would to a, well, let's just say a 12-year-old. Boom. And it will do that. Has the ideas. I can go even further. I can say now a 10-year-old because evidently I'm not as smart as a 12-year-old. Now an 8-year-old because I'm not as smart as a 10-year-old. And it'll do that. It will explain the ideas simpler. Of course, I'm smarter than an 8-year-old. I watch those shows on TV, and I can answer the questions. Are you smarter than a first grader? I'm usually smarter. Sometimes they're smarter than me. But I could say, now explain as a PhD. And then I can be confused because yay me. Let's go back over to the studio. Look over at the studio. And oh, interesting. We've got the audio breakdown, the overview. And if I wanted to, I'd click that again and it'll make it completely another one. But here we have a video breakdown. Let's take a look here. Now that's going to pop here, but I'm going to make that bigger. Actually, I think you can see it and it'll be okay. Yeah. Actually, no, let's make that bigger. Oh, no, it didn't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, it's down here. Okay, there. We make that bigger. And then I click this. And now this is a 5 to 6 minute summary of the article. It gives us all the points.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something pretty wild. We're going to see how a 2,300-year-old philosophy is actually the perfect key to unlocking one of the most bizarre and honestly brilliant modern comedies ever staged. So let's just dive right in. Picture this, you're dead, and to get into heaven, you have to perform your way past a silent, sunglasses-wearing gatekeeper. Yeah, that's the absolutely bonkers premise of a show called Heaven by Storm. Now, this show was created by the Australian duo The Umbilical Brothers, and it just drops us headfirst into this really strange, super minimalist afterlife. This is not the world of clouds and harps you might be imagining. Nope, it's more like a bare, purgatorial stage where two souls are on trial for their eternal lives. And what's so cool is how they build this entire world. Everything you see and hear, slamming doors, buzzing flies, even explosions, it's all created by just two guys, their bodies, and their voices. It's this incredible mix of slapstick comedy, total absurdism, and just pure metaphysical chaos.
You know, it would be so easy to just write this all off as a bunch of silly gags. I mean, a funeral for a cricket. But what if I told you that one academic analysis suggests that underneath all that chaos, there's actually a powerful and really, really old framework that makes sense of it all?
And this is where it gets super interesting. Because the key to unlocking this very modern, very weird show, well, it's not a modern theory at all. In fact, it's about 2,300 years old. That's right, Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher. His ideas about drama and ethics and what makes us human,
Okay, we'll stop there. You get the idea. Okay. Okay, let me click here and go back to the studio and okay, so you can use that. I've got one thing. So Heaven by Storm is the first drama that I approach in my readings and drama course this particular semester. I do that because it is minimalist. I believe in starting with minimalist theater, where it's essentially the idea of two boards and a passion, as Shakespeare said. So I start with Heaven by Storm, and then I'll do Tripod versus the Dragon. So I'll follow up the Australian group with I'll follow up the Australian duo with an Australian trio with Alana Stone, and then I'll go with Reduced Shakespeare Company. So three very minimalist pieces, and then I start expanding. And each play has a different style of criticism. Sometimes I'll revisit the same critic more than once. I will say that the essay that they mention using Aristotle to approach Heaven by Storm was Britain. Oh, my English, you're good. I'm a whole professor and everything. Was written by a brilliant critic named me. All of the essays that I use in this course come from my book on critical approaches to readings in drama. So it's not a weird thing that I use my own book, but it's called The Quirky Critical Eye on Drama, which will be available on Amazon, soon if it's not available now. So there's that. I'll put a link in the description below when it comes out. It's not out yet, but it will be out soon. Not that you have to buy it. I don't ask my students to buy it. I use handouts with them. I don't ask my students to buy textbooks because I use such a disparate number of things. I have a very eclectic approach to this course. But use NotebookLM and you can just put all your course articles in one folder. And I've done the play reading, but I could just unclick that and click on the Aristotle reading, and I could just make these same things. I've already done these, so that's in the pipe. I can make more based on any of these, or I could have everything on and do overviews for the entire course. And certainly if you're a student in a course, you want to review sometimes, you want to go ahead and do that. Get questions and quizzes based on the material itself. Well, that's enough. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that you have thought to yourself, wow, that seems like a useful resource. I'm going to give it a go. And you'll jump on in there and give NotebookLM a go. It's incredibly valuable, particularly if you are a student or teacher or a human who wants to learn things. And I know for a fact some, but not all, some boonall of my viewers, some boonall of my subscribers are indeed mostly human. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you've learned something. Until next time, this is Professor Brian David Phillips saying, have a great day and live trance and prosper. Bye-bye.